Hello and welcome to the SUU Community Connect Learn from Home series, hosted by your community education program. I'm your host, Nicole Stout, and I'm happy that you could join us today. Community Reads is a program created to keep our community connected during this time of staying at home. We invite you to mute your microphone if you are joining us on Zoom and type any questions you might have for the presenter using your chat box. See the mute and chat box options at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And for those of you joining us on Facebook Live, we welcome you to join in the conversation as well. Hello and welcome to our special Business and Leadership edition of Continuing Academic and Enrichment's Community Reads program. We are so excited to welcome our guest today, Mary Pearson. Mary Pearson is the Dean of School of Business at Southern Utah University. Her responsibilities include oversight of the accounting, economics, entrepreneurship, finance, hospitality, management, marketing, and Masters of Accountancy, Business Administration, and Business Analytics programs. Over the years, Pearson has received several awards. Most recently, she earned the Outstanding Educator for Beta Gamma Sigma in 2017, Student Influencer Award for 4 consecutive years, Cedar City Chamber of Commerce Educator of the Year Award in 2016, and Outstanding Educator Award for Southern Utah University in 2013. Pearson has taught internationally at 2 of SUU's partner schools in Austria for the last 10 years. Along with her work as a professor at Southern Utah University, Pearson is a certified public accountant with her own financial firm in Cedar City, Utah. Her professional accounting career has allowed her to meet and consult with successful entrepreneurs throughout the United States. Pearson has served on several secular boards for Iron County School District, Beaver County School District, and Cedar City Corporation, as well as president of 7 different ward and stake auxiliaries for her church. She currently serves as chairwoman for the Cedar City Planning and Zoning Commission and on the board of directors for State Bank of Southern Utah. Pearson earned a Bachelor of Science degree in accounting and a Master's of Accounting from Southern Utah University and her PhD in Business Administration from North Central University. Pearson is proudly married to Alan Pearson and is the mother of 4 great kids and their spouses and 2 adorable grandsons. Please join me in welcoming Mary Pearson. Hey, Mary.
Hi, happy to be here. I wish that we would have cut that back by about 1/100th. Well, about 99 100th. A whole bunch of it. But anyway, thank you for having me here today.
Yes, sounds like you are so busy. Oh my goodness, that is a lot on your plate. How do you keep up with everything?
I love being involved. I love being busy. So it's actually a really big joy. But I have to correct you on one thing. I have a new baby granddaughter today. Through all
are you serious?
So I know everybody on this can be really happy about that. It's exciting.
Oh, congratulations. That's so exciting. Any name? I've heard some names coming out for babies during this time, like Corona. I heard one COVID-19. I thought, no way, no one named their child COVID-19.
Her name is Vivian.
Okay, that's a beautiful name. Well, thanks for being here, even though you have a grandbaby. So now I can say 3 adorable grandkids.
Right.
So you had 2 adorable grandsons, and now this is your first grandbaby girl, yes?
Yep.
Oh, that's exciting. Time to go shopping for pink stuff. That's always fun. So give us some of your background, Mary. Where did you grow up?
I grew up here in Cedar City. I know some of you on that I can see on the screen here. I grew up in Cedar City, right across the street from SUU on 300 West. And my dad was a university professor my whole life growing up, so I've always had a really big love for SUU. It's been part of my life since the time I can remember.
Oh, goodness. So yeah, you were just like destined to go there because that's where you went and you got your business and accounting. So what sent you to Northeastern? Is that where I said that? No, North Central University. What sent you there?
I actually, that's an online university, so I was able to work and get my PhD through them. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity. That there's schools that have that type of education, so it was good.
Oh goodness, especially with a busy mom, 4 kids. How did you keep up with everything? How do you do this? You must tell me your secrets.
One day at a time.
That's very, very wise words. One day at a time. That should be one of the added points to this book. One day at a time. Why did you decide to get into accounting? Sounds like that's kind of your main thing. What made you decide to do that?
My dad was a big influence in my life. He taught business classes, and back, 35 years ago at SUU, if you taught in the business school, you taught accounting and marketing and finance and 10 key and everything else. And he said, Mary, you need to go into accounting. And there were times I was unsure about that, but I tell people, I've told my students for over 20 years that that's one of the best decisions I've made in my life. It's provided a lot of joy and a lot of fulfillment in my personal career. So I'm grateful for that. But it was my dad, and also a teacher in high school that taught me really basic accounting courses, where I thought, this is pretty fun. I liked the organization side of it, and it's been a wonderful choice. So I'm grateful for that.
Oh, that's awesome. You volunteer in the community as well. What other things are you involved in besides all the accounting and school?
Well, right now with my job at the university, I'm involved in a lot of things because of that. I think outside of my job at the university, I can see Joni's on this call, and I'm able to work with her at the Small Business Development Center. But outside of that, I really enjoy working on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I've served there for several years. I've been the chairwoman of the Planning and Zoning Commission for 3 years, and it's my outlet. I love Cedar City. I've lived here the majority of my life, and so I've served on that board. I've served on some parks and rec boards, and served on recreation committees, strategic planning committees throughout the years, and it really, I do it because of my love for this community. So
that's awesome. A way to give back.
What's that?
I said, in a way to give back to the community.
Yeah,
also.
I feel like all the people in this community have done so much for myself and my family. It's my way to give back. Right.
Oh, that's amazing. How has COVID-19 changed everything in your life, your job, service in the community? What's that been like for you?
That's been rough, just like everybody else. It's been really hard. COVID-19 came upon us really fast, and it's not over. And I think that's our biggest challenge, is just hanging in there. There's still a lot of changes to come because of it. The aftermath, how long that will go, whether it's 1 year, 5 years, is, I think, the biggest worry for all of us. And the university, of course, we had to change very quickly from a face-to-face environment to an online environment. And with that comes a lot of anxiety and stress for students and faculty and staff. And again, I don't think we're not over that. There's a lot of anxiety right now with how budgets will fall out and who will be able to remain and be hardy through all of this. And I do believe that we'll be stronger after we get through it, but it's going to be hard. So, but COVID, it's not over, and it's hard, but we're managing day by day. We take it one day at a time.
Yes, exactly. That's our point. One day at a time. COVID,
right.
Mothering, one day at a time. And I'm sure a lot of difficult decisions coming up for you. Oh my gosh, this thing just never seems to go away. It just keeps coming up. Well, today we're going to be discussing the book, Make Your Bed. And I have my copy right here. And it is by William H. McRaven, Admiral. Make Your Bed, Little Things That Can Change Your Life and Maybe the World. And if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. On May 17th, 2014, Admiral William H. McRaven addressed the graduating class of the University of Texas at Austin on their commencement day. Taking inspiration from the university's slogan, "What starts here changes the world," he shared the 10 principles he learned during Navy SEAL training that helped him overcome challenges not only in his training and long naval career, but also throughout his life and he explained how anyone can use these basic lessons to change themselves and the world for better. Admiral McRaven's original speech went viral with over 10 million views. That's when you know you've hit a home run on a commencement speech, right? It goes viral. Building on the core tenets laid out in his speech, McRaven now recounts tales from his own life and from those of people he encountered during his military service, who dealt with hardship and made tough decisions with determination, compassion, honor, and courage. Told with great humility and optimism, this timeless book provides simple wisdom, practical advice, and words of encouragement that will inspire readers to achieve more, even in life's darkest moments. And I was curious about Admiral McRaven, so I looked him up, just a little bit of background about him. He was born November 6, 1955, because in my head I'm thinking, how old is this guy? So 1955 was when he was born in Pinehurst, North Carolina. In his 37 years as a Navy SEAL, he commanded at every level. He served in the Persian Gulf War, Iraq, and Afghanistan. As a 4-star admiral, his final assignment was as commander of all U.S. Special Operations Forces. Ah, that sounds like a big responsibility. After retiring from the Navy, he served as the chancellor of the University of Texas system from 2015 to 2018, and he now lives with his wife in Austin, Texas, and his wife and him have been married for 42 years and have 3 children, which I think is amazing for a Navy SEAL to be married for 42 years, because those guys are gone all the time. So kudos to them. That's amazing. I thought this guy has definitely some things to share. So you made us a slide presentation to go through this book, each one of those 10 points. And each one is just a fantastic point. I actually went through this book and just highlighted all over the place. There were so many good things. So I'm excited to go through this book with you today.
I'm excited. I hope that some of you have had a chance to look at it. I was given this book from Jeff Danzy, who Tania Wallace was part of the Remote Work Tools. Her dad gave it to me and said, this is a really good book that you should read. And I happened to take it on an airplane ride, on a plane trip, and I couldn't put it down. I mean, I always joke around, give me the Cliff Notes. This is a book that is about as big as the Cliff Notes. So it's
yes,
it's
5 stars on the shortness. I love short and to the point. I feel like people come up with great points and then they have to fill it in with 100 pages, and then you lose me on what the point even was in the first place. So that's what I like. He's an admiral, he makes a point, and that's it. So it's fantastic.
I'm going to share my screen with everybody right now while we talk about it for a few minutes. So let me
that sounds
get
great.
this up.
So as you pull that up, out of all these points, did you feel like you related to most of them? Were there some that you didn't feel were as good as others, or did you feel like they all were great?
Okay, can you see that now, Nicole?
Yes, I sure can.
Great. Great. I love this book, and one of the things as I was reading it, I loved the stories that he told in it. They kept me very captivating stories. But mostly as I sat and read it, I really pulled out a lot of things that I could relate to, and that was I always look for that in a book. I always connect it back to myself. And that's one of the things that I loved about this book. And so, of course, he starts out every chapter with, if you want to change the world. And I really love that, because I think that all of us, well, in a way, I mean, we want to do good. We want to do things, at least I have this innate desire to do something that's good. And the thing that I love about the very first chapter, it says, if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. I mean, what a simple statement, right? I mean, it's, but I thought to myself, if we look at the point behind that, it's talking about that just those little things every day are really what matter and what really make a difference in our lives. And as I read this first chapter of what he was trying to get across, it reminded me of my own life. One of the things that my kids have always joked about is that every day when I get up in the morning, before I could get to work, I had to make sure that my house was really clean. I'd vacuum the floor or make my bed. And I thought, why do I do that? And I thought the reason why I do is because it's something within my control. So many things are outside of our control these days that we have no control over, but cleaning my house.
Especially nowadays with COVID, you really feel like there's no control in the world.
So I think that that's the point he's trying to make. You know, take control of one thing that's within your control. And in this book, it's, you know, making your bed and doing it right, doing a good job. I think he even uses the analogy, and well, he tells about how you drop a coin on the bed and it had to bounce up back into.
It had to bounce. Yeah, my bed wouldn't do that. Maybe
ironically, I
comforter.
I read this book with my 19-year-old, and he has been making his bed. It hasn't been the best way of making his bed, but he's been making his bed. So anyway, I really love that first chapter. I think there's some really good analogies that we can use in our life.
Yes, and is this a picture of him? Is this Admiral McRaven right here on the screen? Is that him?
This is him, right.
Okay, that is what he looks like.
I believe this is him when he was giving this speech. So.
Okay.
He
looks like an admiral.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
The second point in the book that I really like is, I mean, he says that, you know, finding someone to help you paddle, but really the point behind that is finding some people that are going to be on your team, people that matter, making sure that we acknowledge those people in our life that are really important to us. So I love that. When I became the dean, I had a man that I really highly respect. And he said to me, Mary, the most important thing that you can do is pick the right team. And I've thought about that a lot, because there's, it hasn't been easy finding and putting the right people on the team. But in the book, he talks about, you know, you need to have people that believe in you, that's important. And so I think that through this time, you know, we have to have the right people on the team. I read a book once called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And in that book, it talks about one worm on the team that destroys the whole team. And I think that's what he's talking about here, is make sure that you have the right people on your bus, you know, behind you.
Yes, I noticed in the book at the beginning, he talks about how there's a group of them and they're in charge of a boat, and they have to take this boat everywhere they go. And I'm sure those boats are just so heavy, and there's 7 of them carrying this boat everywhere. And he says occasionally one of the boat crew members were sick or injured, unable to give 100%. On those days, the other members picked up the slack. They paddled harder, they dug deeper, they gave me their rations for extra strength. I returned the favor. No SEAL could make it through combat alone, and by extension, you needed people in your life to help you through the difficult times. You just can't have the takers. You need givers and takers both. You can't just take, or else you're not going to have a functioning group of people. Like you were saying, in your group there, you'd have to have everyone willing to give and take. Right. And he says, and I have it on this slide, you know, he says, make as many friends as possible. It's interesting, you know, but we do have to acknowledge that it is the people in our lives that really make the difference. Yeah, definitely. You know, as I thought about this, I thought about how my career changed. I did choose accounting, but never thought I would go into education. And I remember being a 26-year-old woman with 2 small children and going into the Community College of Southern Nevada in Las Vegas to the department chair at the time and saying, hey, I want to teach a night class when my husband gets home from work. And I was 26 years old with limited experience. And I remember him looking at me like, you know, who are you? You know, you're just this young girl. But he gave me a chance. And I thought, you know, that one little act of kindness for him to give me a chance to teach a class and pay me $2,000, you know, changed my whole direction in life. So we can't forget those people that really do make that little difference in our lives. In this chapter, he gets really personal in a personal experience where he talks about how he was skydiving. They were doing this, well, I call it skydiving. They were just like random parachuting, you know, got to keep up these skills that you do as a Navy SEAL. They're just out there parachuting, and he's on a drop. And as he's going down, you know, hundreds of miles an hour, falling out of this plane, he's getting ready to deploy his parachute. And he happens to notice that a guy is below him and doesn't see him. And he gets his parachute and it hits McRaven at 120 miles an hour. This parachute hits him. Luckily, he doesn't get knocked unconscious. But then because of this, his parachute and his backup parachute wrap around individually on his legs. And then when they do go, they pull his legs apart by 5 inches. Your pelvis by 5 inches. I was trying to measure that. How far is that? That sounded horrific. And somehow he survives this. But I mean, it's just horrific. But he talks about, as he comes back, trying to come back, thinking his career is over, his wife, like, I think I would probably be like, oh, you poor thing. What are you going to do? His wife just gave him the tough love he needed. I mean, if you're a Navy SEAL wife, you're going to have to be tough. And she's like, you're going to get over this. You're going to be fine. Everyone stepped up. Somehow he was able to get back and continue his career, and it wasn't a life-ending tragedy. But I think that you have just these people along the way that can help you, to give you just a little bit of a push when you need it the most. And I love that story that you just shared. And that, I mean, awesome for you to go look for something when you have a little kids at home. Was that a good experience then, teaching?
It was. I had no idea that I would love it so much. And just that, again, I think when I started, I was paid $2,000 a class, and I taught 3 hours, 1 night a week, and for 14 weeks. But what a change that has made in my 25-year career in education. Yes, what a blessing.
Amazing, amazing.
The third point that he makes that I really like is this, where he says, you know, measure a person by the size of their heart. And I love that he gives several analogies in the book about this, but really his point is, you know, that it really doesn't matter who you are. I mean, what background you have, it doesn't matter. It really matters in your desire and your drive to do things. And, you know, when I was a student, I tell my students all the time, I was not the best student. I was working full time. I was distracted. I was pregnant. I was not the best student. And if I was to be judged or critiqued by my GPA, you know, it wouldn't serve me well for the things that I love doing and the things that I've been able to accomplish. And I just think, I love this part of his book where he says it just doesn't matter. It matters in your drive and your persistence to do things. And I think that that's a really good point to make. I have said for many years, there's 2 types of A students. There's those students that are, and I think this is an analogy make for life. There's those that are really intellectually brilliant. They're really being gifted with an intellect that makes them an A student. But then there are those that will surpass those that are intellectually brilliant because they know how to study. They know how to work hard. And I think that's what he's talking about in this book. He's talking about, you know, measure yourself by the size of your heart, your passion to do things, and why we do that. I just love that. It can really resonates with me.
Yes, I love this. He shares a story in the book where he's there meeting with different Navy SEALs as he's getting ready to become a SEAL, and he starts judging. And we tend to do that. We tend to judge people on their size, and he's thinking in his head, oh, a Navy SEAL is like 6 foot tall and super muscular. And he has this idea, and he sees this guy in the hallway who's just really small. It just doesn't look like a Navy SEAL. And he's like, oh, a hopeful Navy SEAL. And then he goes in and he talks to an instructor there. And then the instructor looks and he's like, oh, did you see who's in the hallway? And he invites him in. And I just love his name. Let me see, I got to find it. His name was Tommy Morris. This seemingly frail mop-haired man, who I doubted could make it through training, was Lieutenant Tom Norris, who had served in Vietnam, had on successive nights gone deep behind enemy lines to rescue 2 downed airmen. This Tommy Norris had been shot in the face by Vietnamese and left for dead. And he was rescued and he survived. And he battled back from that injury to be accepted into the FBI's first hostage rescue team. I just thought, you have no idea what, you know, you have these expectations, but oh, you just never know. Like he says, it's the size of your heart.
Yeah, I love, he says, there's a part in the book where there's a sergeant or a commander, someone in charge, that says to one of the SEALs in training, says, you know, prove me wrong. Prove that you can do this. And I think we all have to have a little bit of fight in us, especially during this time, to really survive. And there have been plenty of people along my path that have not been my advocates at the beginning. And there's this little fight in me that wants to prove people wrong.
Yeah, prove them wrong.
Yeah, I love that part of the book. The fourth part in the book, and this is an interesting picture, and it's an interesting quote, right? Get over being a sugar
right.
cookie. Yeah,
and what is a sugar cookie?
What does a sugar cookie mean? You know, what is
yes.
a sugar cookie? But, you know, if you look at the picture, that's exactly what it is. It's these seals that after if they don't come in first, they have to go roll around in the sand and stay in that nasty sand for hours and hours. And you know, it's not because they didn't do well. It's just they didn't come in first. And I love that. He says, you know, don't blame it on this. Don't blame your troubles on somebody else. You have to accept responsibility and you have to move on. And one of the things that I think it's really hard for all of us to do is to say that we're in the wrong, you know, that we've messed up. And
that's a hard thing to admit it. Yes.
It is. And especially, you know, during these times with COVID-19, we're all just kind of swimming and trying to figure out what's the next step. And I think that more than ever, we're going to have to really accept that when we may make some bad choices and we may not come in first, but we have to keep going. I think that's the key lesson here.
Yes, yes. I thought it was interesting. He swims and then his instructor makes him, McRaven, do the sugar cookie. And he says, do you know why you're a sugar cookie? And he said, no, sir. He's like, because life isn't fair. And I'm like, yeah, life's not fair. That was a good lesson to be learned there. Life isn't fair.
It is. I'm sure many on this call, I tell my kids, life isn't fair. Don't expect it. Don't expect me to be fair because it's not that way. It never will be.
Yes. The earlier you learn that, the better.
Right. The fifth point he makes is, you know, it's interesting. Don't be afraid of the circus. You know, what's the circus? And in the book, he talks about this. He talks about the circus being additional calisthenics. You know, that you have to, if you mess up, you have to go to extra training. You have to stay through the night. They had to do calisthenics and things for hours and hours, and it just became exhausted. But I love the first quote I have on this slide. He says, I sometimes fell short of being the best, but I never fell short of giving it my best. And boy, isn't that a good one?
I love that.
All of us. I love that.
So good.
Me too. I love that. You know, not to be afraid of our failures. But this slide and the next point that he makes, I think for me, I'm not really a huge risk taker. I like to look at information and make decisions based upon that are probably have the least amount of risk. And so this challenges me to not be afraid to fail, to not be afraid to take a few risks, and that, you know, we still have to come up standing.
Yes. And in the book, he talks about how he had a buddy, and his buddy and him kept coming in last. And if you came in last, you had to do those extra calisthenics. You had to go visit the circus. But he found instead of, a lot of times it was a way of getting people to quit. But instead of quitting, they got stronger to the point that when they did their final, they finished way before everybody else. And I love that. If you can just handle the circus, handle the hard times, it teaches you. These hard things teach you and you become stronger.
Yeah. I think back, what reminded me of a time when I was in high school, I had about 6 friends, and all of my friends were trying out for the drill team. And of course I had to try out for the drill team if all 6 of my friends were going to try out for the drill team.
Right, you have to, right?
I had to, I didn't have a choice. And so, you know, I worked hard for a few months to try out for the drill team, and I didn't make it, and all of them did. And I remember thinking life was over, you know, that it was over, that I wasn't going to have any friends, you know, I was going to be depressed. And so for the next year, I took dance lessons, and I tried out again my senior year, and I didn't make it again. And I realized, and I became really depressed, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm a real big failure. And at that particular time, I got into student government. I switched gears a little bit. I switched paths, and I think that little tiny lesson in life, I have reflected on that numerous times. that when you fail, you have to pick yourself up and try again. You don't have a choice. And I've used that principle so many times in my life when things just haven't quite gone the way that I wanted them to.
And look how that shaped the trajectory of your life to choose student government.
Yeah, I did it in college and high school. Complete change in my direction and path, but luckily.
Yes. Yeah.
Here's that second follow-up slide, right? Slide down the obstacle head first. I'm sure you read this part, Nicole, too, but talks about how he used to go down the ropes feet first, and how he could never come in first. And one day somebody went down head first and just beat all the records, and pushing the limits. And again, this is probably,
right. It scared me reading. I'm like, going down head first.
I know, and as I read it, I thought, I'm not really a huge risk taker. I think this scares me a little. I don't know if I'd be able to do that.
Yes, but he did, and he broke the record that they'd had for ever and ever there, because someone decided to go down head first and take that risk.
Yeah. The seventh point, which I love this, he talks about, don't back down from the sharks. And this chapter and a couple of others, but this one was really moving to me because I remember the Saddam Hussein. I remember the Twin Towers coming down, and I remember listening on the news intently to what was happening with Saddam Hussein. And he talks about in the book how he was in charge of him when they captured him, and how Saddam Hussein, even after he was captured, was such a bully, and tried to really, and had used intimidation and fear to really manipulate the guards and the people around him. And I this resonated with me. I know we all have had bullies in our life. We've all had people that have wished our demise or have tried to really push us around. And this was a great chapter for me to realize that when people use intimidation and fear, that's exactly what it is. It's not reality. And we have to remember that, get our courage to continue on.
Yes, I loved how he related this to when they were having to do these swim. Was it in San Clemente, I want to say, where they were out there in the water, and it was well known for all of its white sharks, and they're having to swim at night, and they just tell them, you just stand your ground and you punch a shark if it comes at you. But I thought that was so good for life, because there are sharks that just kind of hover, and at our weak moments, they try and attack, and you've got to stand your ground. With the Saddam Hussein, you've got to stand your ground. And I like how he said eventually Saddam Hussein backed down because they weren't going to put up with his bullying anymore, and that he lost his power, and that had been his power all along, was just his bullying.
But isn't that a great lesson for all of us, that we have to stand our ground? We can't, if we back down, then we've let them win. And I remember that quite frequently when I'm feeling a little intimidated with a particular challenge that's before me. I really love that. And I think this is another great principle to remember in life. Just don't back down from the sharks. That's what they are.
Yes, they are.
Number 8, I love this one. Be your very best in the darkest moments. And when I read this part of the book, I thought about my dad. My dad was in the National Guard for 35 years. He also was a university professor for 35 years. He also drove a truck for many years. But my point was, when he retired from the National Guard, I remember going to his retirement ceremony, and one of the individuals in the National Guard that he worked with said to me, "Mary, we always called your dad Colonel Gollywads." And I thought, at the moment thought how disrespectful that was. But then I realized what he was saying. My dad, Gollywads, he said that was the harshest word he would have ever said. He always had a smile on his face. And I'm telling you, my dad didn't have an easy life. He lost a child to leukemia when he was 5. Had some struggles throughout life with family members, but you would have never known it with my dad. He was had always had a smile on his face. And to be called Colonel Gollywads, he took that with pride. You know, that people didn't realize that he had these struggles in life. I think that's a really wonderful part of this book. That in our darkest moments, we have to come through it, and we have to be kind and loving. I love that part of it.
Yes, I completely agree. I think when we have our dark moments, it teaches us empathy. It's a way of connecting. I think it's a way for the human race to connect to each other. We all have our things, and we should all be here for each other and know different things that we're going through. I love this. I love that part in the book where he talks about how there was this helicopter that crashed and they had this big loss of life during the war in Afghanistan. And that one of the, I'd have to look it up, but there was a guy there, one of the commanders went and personally talked to the families, gave them hugs, and he understood because he had lost his son to combat. He understood that deep loss of losing a loved one. And I really feel like if you know what someone's going through, reach out, give them a hug. Hugs, I know we're in COVID, but still, hugs, I think, are such a way to express empathy and sympathy. It's just so important.
Nicole, his name was General John Kelly. And he talked about
John Kelly,
how he had lost his son, and yet when there were that helicopter crash with 30-something airmen that were killed, he was able to really provide comfort for everyone around him. That really touched me as well.
Yes, beautiful story.
Great picture, right?
I was gonna say that's an awesome picture.
Start seeing when you're up to your neck in mud. Wow, what a great mantra that we need to live by.
Yeah, that picture says it all.
Right. I love the last bullet point I have on here, and he makes this point in the very back of the book. And he says how the average American will meet 10,000 people in their lives. And if every one of us changed the lives of just 10 people, and each one of those changed the life of 10 more for 5 generations, that 800 million people would be changed. I mean, what an impact we can have if we think about it in that perspective.
Yeah, to pass it forward. You really have an effect on people. And even though you have no idea, it really can. Just, you pass it forward, and then they pass that kindness forward. And I believe it. I think you could just change the world in just a few generations if everyone was just kind.
And the last little part, the last one, that he says is don't ever, ever ring the bell, right? It's just never give up. Just keep moving on. And the other day I was talking with someone about the issues that are with this COVID-19, and how many was that yesterday actually, how many people have really suffered with anxiety and depression through all of these difficult times. And what a great message that we really can't give up. Things could always get worse, and we have to continue to press on. And I love that part, how he ties it up in the end. He talks about how don't ever, ever ring the bell. If you rang the bell as a Navy SEAL, you could get out of any situation. You could stop your training. You didn't have to go through any more of the misery. And I love that. And I think I mentioned before, I'm a little bit of a fighter. There's this little part of me that is that doesn't want to give up, wants to prove people wrong. And I thought when I read this book, I thought what a wonderful part in this book when he talks about the 19-year-old young man who was out only 8 or 9 days in the field, and he's
barely out.
Yeah, but he had a landmine and his legs were blown off. And he talks about how this 19-year-old sign languages to him, "I will be okay." I mean, how remarkable to have that attitude that he's going to be okay at 19 years old. It's a wonderful ending to the book.
And I love this picture as well. That expresses it right there. Just never give up. It's amazing how much people give up when they go to war and when they fight for their country. There are people that it affects them for the rest of their life. And yet the attitudes is just amazing to me. What everyone is willing to sacrifice.
If I were to summarize really this book in in how it's really impacted me. I could probably do it. There's about 5 areas that were how it's impacted me. And the first one, first thing that really resonates with me is, you know, remember the small things. Waking up, making your bed, taking control of the things that we really have control over in life. They make us feel good. I'm a checklist person. I'm a check a box. You know, let me know I've accomplished something. So number one, you know, don't forget the little small things in life. Remember those things matter. And I think another second part of this is that we need each other. Really, we need to remember each other and be kind to one another. I think the third thing in this book that resonates with me is, you know, have courage. You have to be courageous to work through the hard things in life. And fourth, you know, try to be our best. And then the last one is just never give up. I love those things, and those are the things that those are my takeaways from the book.
Yes, and take it day by day. Yes.
One day at a time.
One day at a time. Yes, I'm going to add that bullet point in there. So I have a couple of questions to ask you. One that we have is, what are some things you do personally to help with the stress of learning new technology and learning to work from home during all this COVID?
Working from home, I think just filling my mind with as many possibilities. That's the first thing that I had to do with all of this, was to look at what was going to work for me. And so a few things. I wanted to make sure, first of all, that my environment was a place that was peaceful. With all of the other stresses in life, my environment was key. That I made sure that it was a place where I could work and accomplish things. And then number two, I think I had to look at different opportunities. I guess whether I should use Zoom or whether I should use Hangouts, what was effective for me. And then not having to learn 20 different ways of doing things, but only becoming proficient at 1 or 2. And I think that as I've gone through this, I've had to remember that I don't have to be good at everything. I only have to, you know, I've got to accomplish a few things at a time and learn things that work for me. So working from home, it would be making sure that my environment was a place where I could think and accomplish things and get things done. And that's more difficult for others probably than me, because my kids are older. But then just centralizing in the things that worked for me, the technology that worked for me, and learning how to use it well.
You know, I think everybody was trying to figure it out all together. All of a sudden it's just thrown at you and you're just trying to figure out as it comes at you. Unprecedented. Who had any idea at the beginning of this year that this is how it's going to look? I think I just have to laugh. If I don't laugh, I cry.
Yeah. I think we all feel the same way.
Yes, yes. And it's good to hear that we're not alone. And I also have some congratulations on your new granddaughter. I had some comments on that. So yes, congratulations.
Thank you,
we're pretty
everybody.
much done with, yes, so we're done with talking about the book, but make your bed. Where can we get this? We can just get this, I'm sure, probably anywhere, right? I'm sure this is sold pretty much everywhere. I think a lot of people that are watching already have this, but perfect book. I know Father's Day is coming up. This would be a great Father's Day book. So Mary, before we leave, I wanted to ask you, what are you currently reading? What are some books that, besides this one, that have made a difference that you've really enjoyed that you'd like to share?
Sure. One that I really love, and I bet many of you have read it before, but one that has been extremely impactful for me in my career has been this book called Lean In. I love this book by Sheryl Sandberg. This book, actually, I was told to, Mindy Benson told me about this book, and I ordered it right away. I absolutely loved it and reflected back on that book. It's a book for women in leadership and at work, and it really, there's many of the stories in there I'm sure many of you will be able to relate to. It's an awesome book. Lean In, that's probably one that has impacted my life probably the most. But another one that I really impacted my career, I would say. One I'm reading currently right now is it's an older book, but I'm reading it because I was given the challenge to read the book from my new boss. And it's called Stop Worrying and Start Living. I'm only in chapter
I need
3.
that book.
And this is a good book. I've read it. I'm in chapter 3, and it talks about how to process decisions, take them kind of apart and be able to make decisions using kind of a way of looking at things a little differently. So I'm only in chapter 3, but this is my current book that I read each night before I go to bed. And hopefully it will make me a better leader as I go through the rest of COVID-19. Those are my—
that would be a great
books here.
COVID-19 read, to stop worrying and start living, because I think a lot of us feel like we can't live. I felt that way the last couple of months. When will I be able to live again? I should just live. I need to stop worrying, because you can't control what's going to happen in the future.
By the way, he told me to read that book because of COVID-19, because I'm worrying about all the aftermath with all the people that I love and care about at SUU and other places. So good book. Maybe we all need it.
Yes. And I also have a recommendation from Lance that says Don't Sweat the Small Stuff by Richard Carlson. Ooh, that sounds like a good read.
That's a good book. I've read that one too. That's great.
You read that one?
Okay,
I'm going to have to write all these down and go check them out at the library. Sounds like these are things that I need. Well, Mary, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on our program and visiting with me today and sharing this book. I had never heard of it until you sent that out as your book to discuss. I have absolutely loved it. And I noticed the other day, I made my bed. I thought of it. I'm like, ooh, if I make my bed, I'll have accomplished something. And I did. I even told my husband, I made the bed. I got some done today. So that's just fantastic. Well, thanks for tuning in today for Community Reads, everyone. From all of us here at SUU Community Education, we hope you enjoyed learning something new. You can watch the recording of this class at suu.edu/keeplearning or follow our YouTube channel at SUU Community Education. Thank you all for joining us and have a fantastic day. Thanks, Mary.
Bye-bye. Thank you.